Hi, all. Welcome back to the Goddess Collective podcast. I'm so excited to have you here, in this world with me. I have another beautiful guest speaker that I can't wait for you to listen to and to just hear her wisdom. Her name is Brooke Stephany. She's a women's empowerment coach. She's an intimacy and relationship coach. Like she dives into so many different realms, all helping you connect deeper with the self. So I can't wait for you to learn from her. But in this episode, we really dive into a new conversation around pleasure, really expanding that definition. It's not just about sexual, yes, obviously there's a big reason for why there's an association to, sex when it comes to the word pleasure. But I love this conversation because I think we really get to dive into an expansion of that. And it's not just about sexual, right? It's about connecting to yourself in more intimate ways, understanding what pleasure means for you and how to tap into it in a way where it's actually going to create so much empowerment for you in your life moving forward. So it's a beautiful conversation. I can't wait for you to dive in. We talk a lot about the benefits of diving into pleasure in this new way and how that can result in massive changes and shifts in your life. So it's a hugely important topic that I can't wait for you to listen to. And we also talk about how to trust yourself and what that means and how to lean into feeling safe in the body. There's so many different elements that pleasure is, and having a relationship with yourself, really what that means. So I'm so excited for you to tap into this episode. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm always looking to grow and I'm looking for feedback. I'm always looking to see how you guys want to go on this journey with me, because if it feels like it's not beneficial content to you, then there's no point. So let me know what you think. Can't wait to hear your thoughts and also just how this episode resonates with you. There's a lot of really good, juicy moments in here that you'll see. So, so get ready. It's a beautiful journey we go on in this episode together. So, if you connect with Brooke during this and you want more, just know that all of her information will be in the show notes. So definitely check those out when you get a chance. But anyways, without further ado, enjoy the episode. I will see you in the next one. Hi, Brooke. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you doing?
I'm so good. I'm so excited you're here. I had the opportunity to bring you on to the Goddess Collective, which is the Facebook group I have, this empowerment women group. And I'm so excited to have you on today because I know that when we did the session, it's almost like we could have gone on and on because what you do is so exciting and just I think a topic that so many don't allow themselves to dive into. So I'm pumped to have you here.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me back. I'm really excited to talk some more with you and to dive a little bit deeper today.
Yeah. So if you wouldn't mind, just tell us a little bit about what you do, because I know your background is pretty extensive. Like you're, a women's empowerment coach, intimacy coach. Like there's so many things you dive into. So tell us a little bit about yourself and just kind of how you got into the work that you do.
Sure. So my name is Brooke Stephany, and I'm the creator of Becoming Yourself Coaching. I have my own website and a Facebook page and a small Facebook group right now, so you can always find me on Facebook. But I am a certified sex, love, and relationship coach, and right now I'm studying and majoring in women's empowerment, like you said, as well as female sexuality. So before that, I was a sexual assault victim advocate and also a prevention educator. So I worked with both sexual assault victims and survivors, as well as survivors of intimate partner violence. So kind of going through COVID and working at home and trying to reevaluate things, I wanted to really expand on the sexual assault piece of it and healing from that trauma. So I found this amazing coaching certification program with Layla Martin, and now I'm a certified sex, love, and relationship coach. So I help women in lots of different areas, working through their past traumas and healing from those hurts. And then, of course, incorporating the good stuff, reigniting our own level of self-love, self-worth, and then diving even deeper into expanding what your relationship can look like with yourself and with your partner as far as intimacy and sexuality goes.
I love that because I know for myself, even I think I had this assumption that this work was all sex-based. like all focused on intimacy, like with the self, like, sexually connecting in that way, to just feel safe within the self. But I really like the container that you've created that is, it's not just about that, right? It sounds like you're having different conversations around all the pieces that create real pleasure in life. So can you tell us a little bit on what pleasure actually is? Like honing in on what that topic really encompasses?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you look up the definition of pleasure, it's something along the lines of like happiness and satisfaction and enjoyment. And when you say the word pleasure, you probably associate like a sexual connotation to that, right? So I think that it's when practicing pleasure, when learning about sexuality, that can feel like a really huge, really scary topic to dive into,
Mm.
especially if you haven't ever worked on any self-healing, self-development, self-love before. So in terms of pleasure, I know last time when we were on the goddess sessions or the goddess collective, I talked a little bit about like the three different categories. There's like the everyday pleasures. If you've ever heard of like mindful eating, that's a really good
Mm.
example. So like imagine like a chocolate Hershey kiss in your mouth and just like delighting in the pleasure of it melting slowly in your mouth and the taste of it and just kind of savoring it. So there's little pleasures that you can find throughout your day every day, whether it be, being grateful for the sun and it's spring and the weather is getting nicer, to, making yourself laugh by watching funny pet videos. So that
Guilty.
brings us joy. That brings us, I know. I love it when they like fall off the couch. But you can incorporate pleasure through those little ways. And then there's more sensuality. So focusing on the five senses, what you see, what you hear, what you touch, what you smell, and what you taste. I know the last two are kind of hard to tap into sometimes, but when your five senses are on board, it's connecting to a little bit deeper into your body. So if you incorporate pleasure with a soft fuzzy blanket that makes you feel safe and warm, if you incorporate pleasure through a smell of a candle, or maybe relaxing incense or essential oils, or if you incorporate pleasure through your cup of coffee. So like getting those five senses on board can make you feel that happiness, that enjoyment. And then the last layer is more sexual pleasures. So what makes your body feel good and feel safe, what turns you on, what kind of makes you feel really beautiful and sexy and attractive. So whether that be, giving yourself like a hand massage, or getting up and doing a dance to your favorite pop song and just, kind of making yourself feel really beautiful. So there's just different ways that we can incorporate it, but there's just different benefits to pleasure. There's different ways that you can start to learn to incorporate it if you haven't really ever dove into this work before.
Yeah, I love that, because it sounds like there's no one right way to do it. It sounds like it's just connecting with yourself, trying out different things, being open to exploring and seeing what fits and what doesn't, and how fat or how far you want to go and which level you want to play in. Right. I would say, I don't know, I think for me, it's been kind of this evolution as I've just become a little bit more confident in myself. I've been willing to try like I don't want to say higher levels, because I don't want to put a hierarchy to it, but I've been willing to explore avenues that maybe I was timid to before, or I used to try to tell myself like, oh no, like I don't, no, that's not for me. But it was just I didn't know myself enough. So, can you talk a little bit about just the importance of this work and some of the benefits of diving deeper into just bringing consciousness into pleasure? Because that's really kind of another takeaway that I grabbed from what you just shared, was that it sounds like it's a lot of just being willing to slow down, pause, see what does turn you on and what turns you off. Like I kind of got a sense that it's just, let's slow down and bring consciousness into it. And then we can start to really enjoy that moment. And when we're soaking in that moment, no matter what it is, that's where the true pleasure arises, is kind of what I grabbed from that. So tell me if I'm right on or not, and the importance of diving into this.
Yeah. So you brought up two really good points. The first one was kind of slowing down and letting your body relax into that pleasure. So one of the things that I learned from the coaching certification from my teacher, Layla Martin, she really talks about intentionality. So for example, like if we're breathing as a form of oxygen, okay, that's one thing. If we take a deep breath and we know that it provides us oxygen, that's one thing. But if we change that breath and add intention behind it to give ourselves energy and to raise our vibration, you're still taking the same deep breath. It's just the intention that's behind it, right? So if you're taking a walk or going for a run and you want to stretch your muscles either before and or after, that's one intention that you have for stretching your muscles. If you go to a yoga class or a meditative yoga class and you're doing the same exact stretches, you have the intention behind it with the definition of yoga, tapping into your body further, doing some mindfulness. So it's doing the same thing. It's just with a different sense of intention. So if you're struggling with the concept of pleasure, and maybe that seems a little bit too big to you, or like I don't know where to start, or I'm not that in touch with my sexuality, I'm not ready for pleasure yet, just think of examples of self-care. So I kind of named a little bit of them before, but the things that we do for self-care can really be used as a form of incorporating pleasure in those small doses if we have the intention of receiving the pleasure behind it. As far as incorporating pleasure, just think about the examples that you would do for your own self-care. So whether that's going and meditating, you can have the intention of meditating and listening to your body and like listening for those answers, or you can remember that meditating feels good to you. Meditating calms your nervous system down. It feels nice, you're relaxing, and all of that brings you pleasure. So you can also do like grounding activities. If you go outside and you sit under a tree and you're barefoot and you're touching the ground, and that's one thing to ground yourself. But if you add in that focus or that intention of experiencing pleasure, like how good does that feel to your nervous system to be connected to the earth below you? Like how nourishing does it feel for your heart? So it's easier to think about it in terms of self-care with the intention of adding pleasure.
Oh, I like that. I like that. And it just shows that intention is everything, right? So I'm curious for the women who I think it's like there's all these ways we're told that self-care is okay and pleasure is okay. Like it seems like there's only certain things that are accepted. Otherwise, it's kind of considered taboo, right? It's almost like we have to repress and suppress down like maybe urges that people have. And I'm not even just talking sexual, although we can definitely go there, but I guess I just mean I think sometimes we feel like only certain things are okay. And if we're doing anything other than what we see as like a bubble bath or indulging in chocolate, like you said, but maybe there's other things we want to do, like something we've always wanted to try, but we're like, oh no, that's not me. Like, where do you think that comes from? That feeling of holding back and not fully going for the real pleasure that we're seeking.
I think that's like two-pronged. I think it can come from your level of safety and comfortability around that. Like you were saying, like you're starting to get to know yourself more. You're starting to like feel like it's okay, like feel like maybe this is me. So there's that level of safety that you have to incorporate when you're expanding your pleasure bandwidth. But it's also like the way that we were programmed and conditioned in society as to what we should be as far as sexual human beings.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I do feel like more and more is coming to the surface as far as women just saying, no, I've had enough, like, and coming together and creating these empowerment groups and doing more to just feel comfortable in themselves and safe in themselves and be willing to explore. I do see more and more of that, but I do think there's this, I hate to use this word epidemic, but I really feel like there is still just a lot of people holding back. And I'm wondering if you feel like if women are holding back in this area, do you think it's holding them back in other areas too of their lives?
Yeah, for sure. Like definitely diving into this teaching, this certification, this program, it's really opened up my eyes to the benefits of it. I know you kind of asked about the benefits before, and I forgot to mention that. But really, like when you're talking about expanding your pleasure, expanding your safety, when you feel safe enough to incorporate pleasure into your everyday life, then you are starting to raise your vibration. You're happier, you're healthier, you're more creative, you're more magnetic. So it can definitely have a ripple effect of how it relates to not only your level of self-love, but also your level of self-worth, what you're worthy of, what you're deserving of now. And so you start to realize, hey, I get to have all of this stuff. Like it's my birthright to claim what I desire. And I also feel now, by working on myself, empowered enough to go after those things that I want. So yeah, whether it's you working on really improving your self-love or accepting your body for the way that it looks, or seeking a romantic relationship or a promotion or a career, but also all of that comes with this sense of being able to receive. So when you're asking about why women hold back, or I guess why women hold back, I think it does have a lot to do with society and how women are taught to be. And also, especially right now in Western civilization and kind of like the working world, we're really operating more out of our masculine energies. We're, as females, or yeah, as women, as females, we can be a wife, we can be a mother, but we're also able to work. We might be expected to work. So we're taking care of everybody else. We're being really kind of assertive and making sure that we're accomplishing things, and we're competitive in the working world. And that's all very masculine. But in order to receive those things, receive our desires, receive our wishes, we have to be in the feminine. We have to be open to the flow. We have to be open to receiving that. So if it's something that you haven't ever dove into before, and you find yourself in the masculine, putting outward energy, it's going to feel very uncomfortable for you to start receiving the good things in your life, receiving that promotion or that raise or that perfect relationship that you've been waiting for your whole life.
Yeah. I've definitely found that as I've kind of dove into this for myself, it's allowed me to ask just really good questions, like what makes me happy? Stuff that's kind of underrated. Like, what makes me happy? Like, do I actually want to do that? And I think when I started getting in touch with that and just tuning into what does create like pleasure and happiness and joy in my life, that's when I started switching gears, and that's when I think personally started to say, okay, I do trust the process. Like, I'm safe. And now it's something that, is still evolving over time. I don't think like there's ever not stuff to work on. There's never not stuff to work on,
Right.
It's always a progress and things. But no, I think that the more you can like the benefit I've personally seen is the more you can allow yourself to dive into this, the more that you start to understand exactly what you're saying. You start to really feel the difference of the energies. Right. And I kind of want to dive into that deeper, because I feel like the more you start to balance, the more trust you feel. But when you're off balance, it's almost as if there's like these walls that come up, and or if they're not up, it's really easy to sabotage. It's really easy to like come in and put the wall up to protect yourself because you're not ready for it yet, or you don't feel safe to have it. So is there any advice you have or experiences you have around kind of navigating when maybe the sabotage comes up from and having the pleasure you want, or having the things you want and you're working towards, but maybe it's just that you don't trust yet?
Yeah, I think definitely, I don't want to say that you have to be like 50-50, like 50% masculine, 50% feminine, because there are days or times or situations in your life when you're going to want to be a little bit more masculine or a little bit more feminine. But really, it's just about finding that ebb and flow, and about kind of like you said, balancing, but like pulling yourself or making yourself the side that you need to be or want to be on that day or that situation. But as far as self-sabotage goes, I do think that it completely relates to safety. It relates to love. And it's on like such a deep core area of your life. It's probably creating the walls that are created, the walls that go up are probably created within like the first 7 years of our life. So
Mm,
as an adult, when we have those walls go up and we feel either we're self-sabotaging or we're really unsafe or we're kind of like pulling back, there's a deeper reason for that. And that's so much of what we do with coaching, is that we
mm,
really take you in a safe and gentle way and try and uncover, what the resistance is, what those hurts are, what those traumas are that keep showing up in your adult life.
yeah.
So it is some really deep work, and safety is definitely paramount in order to go deeper into that. But once those are worked on, once those are uncovered, then you can incorporate the good things, quote unquote good.
Yeah.
Then you can incorporate more of those things that you're going for, those goals, those desires, and hopefully those roadblocks won't be in the way anymore.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely, a process, right?
Mhm.
It's definitely something that evolves over time, and you just have to allow yourself the grace, I imagine, to kind of shift into this new identity. Talk about identity shifts a lot, and really that's just anytime we're pivoting into a new way of being. It's uncomfortable for a while. It doesn't always fit right, initially, but giving yourself the time because to allow it to become part of you, because you know that it's something that you want, being
Mhm.
willing to go through that awkward period. So I'm just curious if there's or if you wouldn't mind sharing a couple things that you maybe start women out, like to dive into this work, to start trying things on and feeling a little bit more comfortable in this world if they're like new to it.
Yeah, it really depends on like which track you're taking, and like what your like if you came to me as a client, I would ask you like what your goal is, what your desire is, and then from there, I'm going to know, do you want to work on your sense of self-love? Do you want to work on your sexuality? Are you already, feeling like you love yourself, but you want that next level of empowerment? So it really just depends. But as far as today's kind of conversation around female sexuality or around pleasure, I think the first step is really talking about those social conditions that we have been programmed to kind of take on or take into our body, whether that's um, how we were raised from our parents. They were probably doing the best that they could, but what they taught you about sexuality, about pleasure or not.
Yeah.
If you've experienced any sexual traumas or sexual hurts in your past, but also like, what did you learn in school? Like, we can talk about sex a lot from a medical standpoint. Like, it's okay if you go to a gynecologist and they're talking about getting you on birth control, or if you're pregnant, or if you're a menstruating female, if you're going through menopause. Like, we can talk about that from a more medical reproductive standpoint, but we're not taught about our own desires. We're not taught about our bodies as sexual bodies. We're not taught about what it is that we want and that makes us feel good. So it's really going back and examining, like, what did you learn growing up, and what is still affecting your own thoughts and feelings and beliefs and actions. What you get to choose, like, what do you want to
Mm.
believe in now? So it's really like deconstructing that, and it can feel really heavy, and it can be like, well, this is a huge topic.
Yeah.
But it's so eye-opening to even just have a conversation about it and realize the impact that it has on your life, your intimate life with yourself, your intimate life with your partners.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we are the source, right? We're the source of everything we experience, as weird as that can be for people to maybe take in for a second. So the more that you feel worthy and you've tapped in and you're asking these questions, the more you're just going to start, I imagine, attracting things in that you want, and having more of, everything's just going to start to align because you're aligned and you feel good within the self. This is super random, but I was just kind of thinking about this as you were talking. And I remember, like, in school, it was always something that was like a very hush hush subject, unless you were in like sex ed,
Yeah.
like pleasure and sexuality and things. But it was weird. It's like we had a class for it, but it was so like I always felt like it was so surface level, and I felt like it just didn't hit on things. And then outside of that classroom, it was like a no-no subject. Like it
Mhm.
was very, and then I remember going to like, I don't know, like Planned Parenthood and just going to my women's doctor and stuff. And they always ask you the most like straight up questions. They're like, so how many sexual partners you have? Are you using protection? Have you ever had an STD before? Have you ever been pregnant? And they're asking you all these really like abrasive questions. And
Mhm.
it's not that I'm not more of an open person now and I could talk, I love talking about this stuff, but I've always been confused why like school system and society is like it's so hush hush, but then the moment it's like let's talk about our health and let's actually talk about this stuff because it is important. It's like in your face, abrupt, and it's like it makes it feel scary.
Right.
I like I don't know. I'm just curious, like if you like I don't really know that I have a question out of that. More of just like, did you ever feel that way too? Because I just think about that sometimes. I'm like, wow, our society is so backwards on this subject. Because your take on pleasure and intimacy and connecting with the self is like this holistic approach and talking about
Mhm.
really like this will make you more of the person you want to be. This will connect you to you and it's beautiful. But then in society, it's like check yes or no, all these boxes and like taboo. We can't talk about it. It's bad.
Yeah. Well, honestly, from my previous career, when I was a sexual assault victim advocate, I did go into the schools a lot, or even like the local community, and I would talk about things like dating violence and sexual harassment and sexual assault and rape and what is consent. And, so I was used to talking about that. And I experienced that from a lot of the presentations that I've done. It's just like, wow, you say it in such a matter of fact way that you don't make it feel like it's something to be laughed at or that it's awkward or that it's like shameful and icky. Like it's just a part of life. So I don't remember like experiencing, I don't remember, what I've experienced in health class or my childhood. I can imagine like feeling really weirded out talking about it in health class, but as an adult, like just that was my profession, is to bring up um, those topics. And of course, those topics were everything that we don't want to have happen to us, everything that shouldn't happen to us, right? But now that I'm shifting careers, I really want to focus on what do we want, like what turns us on, what do we desire, what makes us feel good. And you're right, like that is not talked about enough in
Yeah.
society. And I think it just like other ethnicities, other cultures, they don't let women become sexually liberated. Like they look at women and the role of their sexuality as like reproducing, like, making more children, like just from a like a biological standpoint. And I don't want to seem like insensitive here. Like this whole conversation that I'm having with you, I'm really referring to like men and women as gender. And I know that there's, different varying gender identities and gender expressions you can have. And I'm also talking or referring to like a relationship with men and women. But I know again that there's a multitude of different relationships that you can be in and different sexual orientations you can have. So I just wanted to point that out. But going back to like the different cultures where women aren't allowed to be um, sexually liberated, men get to first of all think about what they want when it comes to pleasure. They get to express it verbally or not. They get to go after what they want, what makes them feel pleasurable, and often it's the women giving the men the pleasure. But when it
Mm,
comes to women, like we're not even taught that growing up as children, to think about what's going to make us feel good, let alone talk about it or even go after it.
yes.
So to answer your question, I think it's so weird to have it just like right in your face and make it seem like a normal part of life. And I think it just has so much to do with culture and society and maybe religious viewpoints or just how we're raised to view female sexuality.
Yeah. And I couldn't believe that it's the least studied subject in all of science. I couldn't believe that women's bodies, our sexual health, all these things.
Mhm.
Like, yeah, we're the ones creating everybody in this world. We should be the most studied, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's wild. But yeah, I found it's really interesting that not even just sexual, but just like in any of the like daily pleasures, including pausing, slowing down, like you were talking about before, and just kind of allowing yourself, you can kind of milk your time a little bit and not do all the thing, like all the go, 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 go. There's times myself, my clients, there's this sense of guilt for doing that and leaning into the pleasure because it's like this trying to keep up, like you said, with the masculine energy. It's like this trying to keep up, but that's not who we are. And
Yeah.
I want to talk about a little bit with you, like this deep feminine power that we have. And I imagine you're helping women really dive into that in this work. But what does that mean to you? Because to me, it really means knowing that your power lies in just knowing your worth and saying, okay, I am enough and things come to me. And
Mhm.
safely sitting in that and just showing up authentically in whatever way feels aligned for you. But I'm curious your take on that and how you would explain, or yeah, how you think about that topic.
Yeah, I personally am a very masculine energy. I
Okay.
wish that I could be a little bit more balanced, and it's definitely something that I'm still working on. It lights me up so much. I'm so interested in learning more about the feminine energies and, going deeper into my own feminine energy. But it definitely takes practice. Like you said, like there's that sense of guilt, there's that sense of, um, oh, I should be doing something else. And it's the give, give, give. We take care of everybody. And then we can't even find time to go to the gym. So
Yes.
it's definitely again how we were programmed to be a wife and a mom and a caretaker and maybe a business owner or an employee. And we have so many roles. And it definitely takes getting used to learn how to accept those feminine energies. So as far as what might come up, like, oh, that shame or that resistance or that guilt that you should be doing more and more and more, it's again bringing in, it's talking about the emotions, it's talking about the feelings. So if you're trying to take 5 minutes in the morning to sip on your coffee and listen to the birds without checking your phone, and you're like, oh, but I got to get the kids' lunches ready, it's the mind chatter. um, it's really just noticing what's happening in your body. And let's just say there's an emotion that comes up of guilt, like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Like, the guilt comes in so easily. So it's really about like first acknowledging, like, I know that there's that feeling of guilt right now, and I'm not going to
Yeah.
squash it down. I'm not going to pretend it doesn't exist. Taking it one step further and saying, like, I accept you. I accept this part of me. And then like loving it. So
Mm.
going back to like how you can incorporate pleasure into your emotions, um when you're like holding back your tears and you really want to cry, either you're like so upset about something, you're so hurt, but you keep putting it off, putting it off, putting it off,
Yeah.
and then you finally let yourself cry and you're like, oh, it feels so much better. There's pleasure in letting the emotions come out of you too. So
Mm.
whether it's like you are feeling really frustrated with all the things that you have to do, as a mom, as a wife, as a profession in this world, throw a temper tantrum, like give in to those emotions of like feeling like this isn't fair, or give into those emotions of I feel so guilty, and like just allow that energies to move through you.
Yeah.
And even take it one step further to incorporate the pleasure of like, oh my God, this feels so good to release it. This feels so good to acknowledge it instead of just shoving it down like it doesn't exist. So the
Yeah.
more that you can let those things move up and out of you, the more room that you have to incorporate the positives, the pleasure, the self-worth. So it's really like this ebb and flow of like letting it come out and like giving yourself back what you need.
Yeah, I almost feel like I just could take a big breath when you said that because I love that you brought this up. And it's something that maybe we should have even touched on earlier in this conversation is that you're right. Pleasure is not always just like the positive things that build you up that make you feel so juicy and good. Sometimes it's just really sitting in the moment of whatever emotion is coming up, even if it's undesirable, letting yourself fully feel that. Some ways that I've been kind of diving in is there's been moments, especially it happens around like the week before my period, I get really angry. And I really believe it's like good data. It's just letting me know, okay, here's some really ugly shadow side stuff that I need to work on.
Mm.
But in these moments, I actually scream into a pillow.
Yeah.
Oh, like, because it's like this pent up energy. And it actually feels so good to just like scream and just like you have the vibration of my voice just go. into something that's not going to like, obviously disturb everybody else, but it feels so good. And just sitting in that. And sometimes I'll do extra screams because I'm like, I just want to let it out.
Mhm.
So I love this side that you brought up. And I really want to hone in on just the importance of embracing every single part of yourself. And I
Yeah.
think, do you feel the same way? Like when you can fully accept every single side of yourself, good, bad, ugly, indifferent, whatever, like that's when you really love yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Like there's the kind of like um surface level emotions and personalities that we're aware of, but it's like you said, it's those shadow sides, it's those deeply hidden, maybe rejected because we don't want to work with it, or stuffed down because we don't have time to acknowledge it. So it's all those little bits and pieces of us that if we build that relationship with them, those pieces, we can accept them, we can show them love, we can give them what they actually need in order to feel loved. And then it's almost like they transform. So if there's this really like disgusting side of you that comes out, like, love the disgust, it's there, it's part of you. And instead of just pushing it down and maybe having it grow and grow and grow, if you work with the disgust, you can get information from it. You can learn what it needs. You can learn how you can work with it in other situations. So, yeah, absolutely. It's mind blowing work that I don't understand why we're not taught in everyday life.
Yeah.
We're just so programmed to storytell and to talk verbally, but that's very heady. That's very in the mind.
Mhm.
And it's completely transformative when you go into the body and you work with all those parts of you. And after you do that, that's when the self-love comes in. That's when the self-worth starts to really make or grow and magnify. And that's when those desires are coming to you unexpectedly because that's what you're attracting now.
Yeah, I just really want to like acknowledge you for a second because sitting here having this really empowering conversation around a subject that is probably one of the most important subjects, especially as women, but just in general, that could be talked about. And I remember just at the beginning of this, you just kind of lightly touched on, your background and everything some of what you've overcome, and now you're doing this work.
Hmm.
Like so many people go through really difficult traumas and it really it can destroy them, and it's understanding, right? It's understanding why that would happen because your soul is like attacked for so long, right? So I just want to touch on that just a little bit and kind of backtrack. How did you get to a place of like, I feel like you are just one of the most empowered people having gone through what you went through, with the trauma, the sexual abuse, the everything. How did you pull yourself out of that to say, no, I'm going to change, excuse me, I'm going to change the narrative of my story and I'm going to now help others? How did you get to that place? Because that right there is a journey that I want women to understand is possible.
I think a one word answer is women. So like other women, community, that's the inspiration behind it all. It's seeing your role models, seeing what potential is out there, realizing like you don't have to be stuck in this. This doesn't have to define you. This doesn't have to be the end. It's not your story. You can rewrite your story and you can use other women as role models, other women as support, other women as healing and nurturing. And really we learn best with each other. But I don't remember very much from my child sexual abuse, but obviously my body does, so I went through a couple of years of counseling for like sexual assault victim, to heal from my own um, previous victim. So then after that, when I found myself in not one, but two different unhealthy intimate relationships, again, I found myself in a women's support group. And it was there that I was like, there's so much more. Like, I want to be on the other side of the table. Like, I want to heal from this trauma that I've experienced, but also I want to help others. So
Mm.
really it was other women. It was learning so much about this. I know my studies started to when I wanted to heal from how I was victimized. And then it transformed into how can we prevent this, the prevention piece that I did. And then it just grew from there into how can I continue to become more empowered, to become more sexually liberated and get the life that we all truly desire. So yeah, it really just started in community. It started with other women.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. I think we're in a society, this is another thing, kind of in a society where we talk online a lot about women empowerment, but sometimes in the real world, women are nasty. Women are nasty to each other. Like I can't even tell you how many more times I enjoy having guy friends sometimes than girlfriends because the jealousy, the judgment, the comparison, so it can be really hard sometimes to want to put yourself in a group of women and say like, yeah, this is my people. So what was, I mean, maybe you didn't have a sense of that, but, or maybe you did. What was a mindset you had to maybe overcome to say, yeah, this is totally this, like to have that aha moment? And I'm putting you on the spot here. I know that's a
Yeah,
big question for
no,
an on the spot answer.
I know that there's the cattiness, there's the drama, there's the competition, there's like the cut downs, but I didn't really have very many friends growing up. Like I had a really close knit group of friends, and of course that evolved throughout college and through different jobs that I've had, and but it was still always very close knit, or like just a couple of close friends. So I didn't necessarily experience a whole lot of that, the cattiness and the drama, but I know that there's that competition out there, and I think real going back into like getting into your inner feminine and really owning that, it's also seeing yourself in the reflection of others. It's really supporting one another, because when we know that we can come together, like we can make positive change, we can help so much, we can make such a bigger impact than if we're fighting against each other and kind of competing and tearing each other down. But I don't doubt that it comes from feeling unsafe, feeling threatened by her or by someone else or by her accomplishments. And it's, if we're threatened from someone else and we're feeling that sense of, oh, she's better than I am, or I don't like her because she's succeeding more than I am, it's one step deeper. It's again going into those pieces of how you were formed from the first 7 years of your life and those hurts, so that sense of I don't like her because she's my competition is going to have 3 or 4 layers behind it. And it's really about loving yourself. So,
Well, if there's not a better benefit to the work you're doing than being able to love yourself so much that all you see is love in others. And so that jealousy, those, competition, that dissolves, and you can see yourself in another person and love them just as much as you love yourself. Your life would just instantly be better. Your life
definitely.
would be so much better, right? Because you see women in the world all the time. Like you got to be able to be okay with yourself. Otherwise, I don't know how people are living like that. But it's out there all the time. So yeah, that's beautiful. So any last advice you want to share to the women who are just maybe looking to expand their container in this way right now? They want to feel like they can just dive deeper into pleasure, whatever that means for them. What's some advice you would tell them to just get started or to allow themselves to go for it?
Yeah, when it comes in terms of pleasure, I think if it's something fairly new to you, I think it is just about um, looking at it from a different perspective, like what we talked about before. Like take it as self-care and then add in a little bit of like what feels good to me, what makes me happy. But really starting to learn how to tune into your body rather than your mind and your thoughts, tuning into those feelings, tuning into those little sensations of like butterflies in your stomach, or like a relaxation in your shoulders, just starting to tune into the body, because it holds so much wisdom. And if you can connect to it, you can figure out what is going to be pleasurable to you. So really taking your time and going slow and making sure that you feel safe. But definitely there's just so much to learn, so much to explore. And like one thing leads to the next, but it can be fun, it can be fun too. It doesn't have to be all doom and gloom and scary.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. It can sometimes the unknown can be like, what if we associated it to exciting, right? Instead of being like, oh, it's scary, I don't know what's out there. What if it was like, no, this is me opening up myself in ways I've never been able to before. What if it was just this exciting next step you're taking to grow yourself?
Yeah,
You
like
know,
a
changing the
curiosity.
yeah, yeah, changing the verbiage. Well, exciting. So with everything you're doing right now, what's next for you? Because I feel like every time I connect with you, you're growing and doing so much and adding more to your repertoire and you're just helping more and more people. So what is next?
Yeah, as far as what's next, I am working on the two majors. So I'm working on the women's empowerment major and the female sexuality major. And even though I am certified in like my core, so the sex, love, and relationship coaching, I'm still practicing the other two majors. So actually, I'm looking for a couple of practice clients to finish those majors with. And I do have like a reduced rate that I'm offering. So if you're interested in working with me on either women's empowerment or female sexuality, kind of what we were talking about today, I'm definitely looking for more clients to practice with. And I'm really excited to finish that. And
Yeah.
the other thing that's kind of on the horizon that I'm also really excited about is I'm looking into starting an in-person women's group. So very much what we were just talking about,
Yay.
like sisterhood and learning from each other and just holding that space for each other. So I've already looked into a couple of different places that could be a venue and thinking about advertising and all of those details. So I'm really excited to do it in person, but of course I can easily do that virtually as well. I just think
Yes.
right now is a great opportunity with the weather warming up and people kind of coming out of the woodwork. And um, even though there is still, COVID going on, I think people just want that sense of connection. And so I'm really excited to teach women in person because I feel like there's a different level of energy that gets exchanged versus being on Zoom or being over social media. So
Yeah.
a little bit of both, but yeah, I'm just continuing to work on my certifications and kind of see where this leads me.
Oh, I'm excited too. I think it's one thing to do the work, to dive in, to help others, but to expand and go bigger and help at scale and create in-person experiences. That is life changing. You're doing amazing work. I can't wait to keep watching your journey and supporting
Mm,
you. And maybe one day I'll be able to be at these events and things.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much. And oh, my last question, where can the ladies connect with you right now? Of course, I'll be putting your information in the show notes, so definitely check that out below if you want to connect with Brooke directly. But if there's a place that's like the best place to connect with you, let us know. So we can reach out.
Yeah, definitely. So you can find me on Facebook, either my personal profile, which is just my name, Brooke Stephany, or I have a business page. It's Becoming Yourself Coaching. And then I have my website, becomingyourselfcoaching.com.
Mm. Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. I love the name.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely a journey. I'm becoming myself more and more every day, and I'm so
Yeah.
excited to help other women do the same.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I can tell every time, like I said, every time I see you, you're just more and more just you, which is so exciting to see. So thank you for being on today. It's such a
Yeah.
pleasure. Such a
Thank you so
pleasure.
much for having me. I love this conversation and I love everything that you're doing on your side as well. So
Thank
excited for your
you.
podcast. Yay.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, talk soon.
Bye.